Hello, and thanks for joining us today. Listen, culture is the strategy you should really be knowing about. And what I'm talking to you about today is really how to define a culture within your company that helps you build the successful business that you've always wanted to build. So, what we're going to do today is we're actually going to get inside the mind of a workplace transformation expert to get you all the details you need to know. I mean, this could be a game changer for you, your team members, and your company. So, with us today is Chris Dyer. Now, Chris is actually a globally recognized expert on company culture and remote work. So, as a former CEO, his companies were named Best Place to Work 15 times and appeared 5 times on Inc. magazine's list of fastest growing companies. Now, today, Chris is a top ranked leadership speaker, a consultant, and also a best selling author of The Power of Company Culture and Remote Work. He's actually been featured on numerous global leadership lists, including the LeadersHum Power List and Inspiring Workplaces, top 101 influencers in employee engagement as well. Now, Chris actually helps organizations build high performance cultures that drive productivity, engagement, and profitability. And through his keynote talks and 7-pillar strategy, he delivers practical, experience-based insights that leave lasting impact. So, known for his candor, his humor, and actionable advice, Chris has transformed how leaders approach culture and performance. Beyond the stage, Chris is actually a passionate hiker, music lover, and family man. He believes that thriving at work and in life go hand in hand, and he's on a mission to help companies create environments where everyone can succeed. Chris, what's up, man? Thanks for joining us today.
Hey, thanks. Appreciate the nice intro there.
Yeah, well, I know it's very early in California, so I appreciate that you have your coffee and you're ready to go.
I'm ready to go. I'll get a few sips in every time you talk. So,
So, company culture, I think so many people, it means so many different things to so many people. So, from your perspective, how do you define company culture?
it's pretty simple. Culture is the way we get things done. It is the norms. It is that, feeling of. I have a good example. Like I've gone into companies and you pop up to the third floor and you can see people talking and there's a good vibe going on and everything seems cool. And then they're like, okay, but your meeting's on the fourth floor. And then you go up to the fourth floor and suddenly it place is quiet and everyone's computer monitors are turned so you can't see it. And you can feel the difference on that floor, right? So same company, one floor apart, what's the difference? And it's that those leaders and the way those people act and the way in which they think, are they safe? Are they collaborative? Are they doing those things? Or are they not? And so ultimately, how we get things done, how do we operate in meetings, all of those like little things, that's the culture, right? And then there's what should the culture be, and we can talk about that. But like, you know, do you let people make decisions without checking with you as the boss? Do how much leeway do you give them? Like all those kinds of things. Like that's culture. It's not the beanbags. It's not if you buy them lunch. It's not if you have an open door policy. Like that's not culture. It's what actually really happens every single day as those decisions are made.
I love these examples. And now we've entered this world where we have remote workers, right? It's actually more predominant now than we've ever had before after COVID. So, why do you think culture is so even more important now when we've seen this dichotomy of like work, working in an office and then also working at home?
Yeah, and so how you approach culture might be a little bit different if you have hybrid or remote teams, or if that's sometimes a thing or all the thing, or maybe you're always in the office. And there's going to be a slightly different approach there. But the importance of culture does not change based on your flexibility sort of setup. I'll tell you that for about 8 years, I put all of my focus every single day in being involved in every part of the business as the owner. And we did okay. We were fine. No one ever wrote an article about us. We never had record breaking, crazy growth, but we were fine. Okay. And then we had a big recession in '09. And I really realized that we had to make a big shift. And finally, the shift that I landed on was that I needed to focus on our culture. That was a decision I made, and I didn't know if I was right or wrong. But ultimately, what I did is I stopped focusing on the different parts of the business. I was no longer getting myself involved in all of the big sales meetings. I wasn't involved in all the marketing meetings. You know, I could be involved in those things if they needed help. But instead, I spent my time as the owner figuring out how I could make the culture better. And I said, I'm going to do this for a month and let's see what happens. And that was so good that I was like, I'm going to do this for a year and let's see what happens. Until I sold that business at the end of 2021, I never went back. And then we had record-breaking years, year after year after year. Inc. 5000, fastest growing company 5 times. All the good things that ever happened to our organization happened after I stopped trying to be in the business, right? And allow my people to do the job that I hired them for. Yes, I was there as a resource. Yes, I was still a part of conversation. It wasn't like I was never in the sales meeting, but I wasn't in it because I was there to try to like tell them what to do. I instead try to figure out how to make their lives easier. How do I help them protect from burnout? How do I create better engagement? How do I fix our meetings? How do I get rid of people that are cancer? How do I help people that don't have a voice to be heard? How do I do all of these things to help? Basically, the way I like to put it is, how do I make work work for everybody? And when I did that, everything changed, right? And so that's the shift that I would sort of challenge anybody listening to. It's not necessarily about doing some little program or spending a little money here or having a party or whatever. No, it's about a daily routine of how do we help our people get better.
I love the way that you lay that out with even really good examples of what you kind of worked on during that time, because I think that's the thing is I think a lot of people look at culture differently and almost objectively of like what they think culture means to them. And if they were just going to own culture, for example, for a month or for a year, what they would actually tackle. So this might be, segue into your 7 pillars. So how did you come up with these 7 pillars? It seems like you've kind of found a way to categorize culture and be able to address it in these different areas. So how did you come up with that strategy, with that philosophy?
So it was a combination of things. I read hundreds of books as I got kind of fascinated by this. I did podcast interviews with top leaders from around the world for 10 years. And I went to conference after conference after conference and talk to highly successful people. I would go and find the speakers who I thought had really done a business, had really been out there and were practitioners, and would ask them as many questions as I could until they try to escape from me because they had to go off and do something else, right? So I try to just extract as much information as I could from as many reliable sources as possible. And what I noticed pretty early on, and then I continued to validate and experiment with this, was that they were all telling me the same thing. Now, most people didn't tell me here's 7 things. They would say, we really focus on this 2 or 3 things. These are really big for us. And somebody else would say, we focus on these 2 or 3, and there'd be some overlap there. But there was basically 7 things that I kept hearing over and over and over again. And I put my words to those 7 things. But I noticed that those were the common themes in the books, common themes and success stories. It kept coming up over and over and over. It's almost like, how did I come up with you should drink water? I mean, it's just like, the thing you do. How do you're supposed to take, eat healthy if you want to be fit? Like this is not like I didn't come up with something out of thin air. This was like obvious things that kept coming back, but no one had articulated it in this way, had put all 7 of these things down. And so once we had that, then later on, I began to even take it to other organizations, do massive studies with them, with NASA, with lots of larger organizations to really make sure this was correct, and it wasn't just correct in my company or correct in what I was hearing from the people, but we went back and we've never had it not test true. I've never had one of the pillars like, well, that wasn't that important for this company. It's always been that 7. We've never discovered an 8th, right? I'm waiting for AI to maybe give us an 8th, but it hasn't happened yet. It's still just the 7. So
Let's dive in a little bit further. Can you kind of give us a little bit of sampling of these 7 pillars?
sure. So the one people usually ask me, like, which one's most important? And most important one is the one that you're not good at. It's the one that if I say these 7 and you're like, oh, you kind of wince and get uncomfortable when I say that word, like that's the one you got to go after. That's the most important for you. But the 7 are transparency, positive leadership, listening, uniqueness, measurement. Then we have mistakes. How do we deal with mistakes? And I'm forgetting one. Did I say listening and listening?
Yeah. Okay. So transparency, listening, uniqueness, measurement, and then you also said, I think, active listening,
Oh, the one I missed was recognition. Sorry,
recognition. Okay.
recognition number seven.
And you said that these are the seven that you always found. You haven't found more, you haven't found less than almost any organization you've helped.
Right.
So give me an idea, like when you talk about transparency, like give me a little bit more insight into that.
Sure. So here are some of the things that we did. I continue to do in my next organizations, and that organizations around the world do really really good job with. In fact, I learned this from Jack Stack. He's got a great book called The Great Game of Business, and is essentially how do we provide people with as much information as we possibly can. The way in which he did it and the way in which we did it as well, it works fantastic. And this is the one I would suggest people start with is, can you start sharing your financial data with all of your employees? Can you imagine if every single month you gave everybody your P&L and said, this is how we did, this is how we made the money, this is how we spend the money, what would happen to your business? Now, a lot of people get freaked out, but like, no, I don't know if I want people to know all of that. They're going to start asking, if we make money, they're going to start asking me for raises. And if we were losing money this month, they're going to quit. And that stuff never happens. It never, ever, ever has happened one time. I've never in any organization I've ever worked with, they started showing the P&L and they showed they were making money a month and had a line out the door asking for raises. So what we don't have to give them the detail. I understand in some businesses you may not want them to know exactly how people are getting paid, and there may be some sensitive stuff there. But if we just give them the summary, right, and help them understand how the business works. We even had to give people like education on financial literacy. I mean, there are people who didn't know how to read a P&L. I mean, I've hired executives that barely knew how to read a P&L if you haven't really had any finance training. So we had to provide training and all of that. But what was crazy is that people how we were making the money. And so it helped them make better decisions on what clients we should be trying to pull into the organization, what clients we don't want, right? When they understood there are certain clients that are more profitable than others, that really helped the sales team, that helped the marketing team, that helped our customer service team. But the big shock to me was within a year, we were 30% more profitable after we started sharing this data. And the reason for that was that people started going back and saying, I didn't know we spent money on that. I didn't know we had two vendors that were supplying that same. Why don't we go get one vendor for that? Why don't we go and put all of that volume into one vendor, get a volume discount? Why are we spending that much on healthcare? Like my buddy Tom, he can give us a better deal on healthcare premiums, and they just suddenly had all these ideas and helped us find ways to save money when they knew how we spent the money. And so they naturally want to do well in their job, right? I never said, hey, we got to have a cost cutting thing. I never said we're going to give raises or bonuses if we find ways to cut. I just shared the data and they went and did the work, right? That was so powerful. The second way that you could think about transparency is I can't tell you how many times I've talked to middle managers and leaders, and I say, tell me about how do you manage people? How do the goals work? And basically it's they're the boss and they have an employee and they know their employee's goals, and that's it. Nobody else knows the goals. I mean, you go up the chain and they might have access to the goals, but does the CEO really know what the customer service rep number two's goals are for the year? Probably not. How does that help? How does it help if only one other person in the organization knows what your goals are and is responsible for helping you achieve them? If we have transparency, we shift that, and everyone on your team knows everyone's goals, right? And now everyone on the team should be responsible for helping everyone reach their goals. Isn't it only better as a team? Don't we talk about that as a society all the time? We're better as a team, better as a family, better as a group. And yet we've been leaving people on an island to reach their goals by themselves with their boss. So transparency shows up when we share that, we talk about that, and we talk about our goals as a group, as a team, as this, cohesive, group that moving forward in the organization on how we're going to get there. And if it's November and I've reached my goals as the salesperson and I'm going to kick it into Easy Street, I might want to help out my other sales person on my team to help them reach their goals if I got a little extra time at the end of the year, right? Like we find ways to help people because we care about them. And then we would took that and we had made sure that each department was sharing its department goals with each other. Come to find out that like customer service goals were in competition with sales goals. That's not good, right? Our sales goals and marketing goals were in competition. So I know I've said that's probably the longest answer you've ever gotten on your podcast, but that's how kind of transparency shows up.
I can't help but taking a tremendous amount of notes. So I hope my quiet typing here is not distracting everybody. But this is just it's phenomenal points. I love everything you're saying. As a matter of fact, I've actually starting to add stuff to my to-do list in this as well. So take your time with the answers because I think that this is really, really, really brilliant stuff. So transparency means a lot in the areas of everything to do with the company. Anything that you think that we shouldn't be transparent on?
I advocate you should go as far as you can go. Now, there are some organizations that have struggled with sharing everybody's salaries and pay. That has been the one area that it gets a little hard to manage. So if you want to go full boat, full transparency, and everyone is in the same country, you can probably do it. It gets really hard when you have people around the world. It's hard to share salary data when we're not paying someone, let's say in a different country with wildly different cost of living, and we're not paying them the same as what we would pay somebody who lives in Los Angeles. I've noticed that's where organizations get really knotted up and it's really hard for them. And they almost regret going that far. But we did it in my company because we had everyone in the country, and so we could share that data. We could talk about small differences in pay that might be based on where they live. Hey, somebody lives in I got a head of marketing in Kansas. It's going to cost me different than the head of marketing in Los Angeles. It's a different cost of living. But we could talk about those small variances in a way that made sense, and people were happy, and it was fine. So that's the only area, right, that I really think could there be, I don't know, trade secrets, crazy confidential client data if you're working for like the government and top secret stuff? Sure. There might be some fringe stuff over there that you can't share with everybody. But I think 99% of all companies can share 98% of everything that's going on.
I love that. And honestly, that's something I'm going to adopt in our organization. I think it makes a lot of sense. When I've always tried to struggle with how do I get team members to take ownership of those things, but without making them take ownership, you know? And this sounds like a real good way where they voluntarily kind of take some ownership when they're able to just have the transparency to see what's actually going on. Now, if everybody on my team quits, then I'm going to come back and talk to you.
Uh,
But I feel confident that I've actually found this year. We've done a lot of this with our one-page plan, our mission, our vision. We review it every week, and it's interesting because to your point, like when we survey our team members every month, the satisfaction and the feel that they are getting communication from their leaders has exponentially increased with that transparency. To your point, which actually brings me to another point. What do you do to do better listen to those team members? So it's one thing to give them transparency, but then another one of your pillars is to listen. What should we be doing as employers to be able to better listen to our team members and our teams?
yeah, so I mean, the first thing we did when we did the transparency part was to make sure every single month we had a company-wide meeting that was the only like mandatory meeting I ever held every month for the whole company. And we share the P&L, every department. I mean, this is a 30-minute meeting. That's it. Like, don't do a 2 hour, 3 hour company wide. That nobody wants that. That's torture. 30 minutes, super tight. Here's our P&L. Here's how we're doing. Every department comes in and says, here's our goals. Here's how we're doing against them. And when we say we're having a problem, we're not reaching our goal, we had a bad month, here's what we're going to do about it, here's what change we're going to make. That's all people want. They want to know what you're going to do about it. They want to know you got a plan, right? That's why they don't leave. That's why they don't disappear when things get rocky, because they know you showed up and you filled in the gap, right? Now, to connect that, the second part is how do we hear from them what they're concerned about? How do we know what they want us to address going forward? I hate, hate two things that companies do right now. First one is the annual review, the annual survey, excuse me, the annual survey. I think it's stupid. I think it's dumb. I hate it. If I didn't tell you that, I hate it. We ask people questions about their job once a year, and then we take all that data and like try to figure out what to do with it, and then come back to them with some solutions that we don't really have. So I'm a big advocate for how do we get 1% better? Like that should be the question we're asking our people every day, every week, every month, and in every meeting. How do we get 1% better? Not how do we change, how do we double our sales? Not how do we like, because most people can't think in those terms. We have some really good strategic leaders, maybe some very experienced people that can. But most of our people can only really help us in making small incremental tweaks that can help. Or they can get behind the idea of how do I get 1% better? And to do that, we have to start pulling out of them content. So to listen, the best way that you can try to listen to your people is to get rid of the annual survey and instead reverse engineer it into a weekly 1-question survey. Every week, 1 question. Okay. And so what you do on Wednesday, you send out the question. And then you tell them I need the results back by Friday. Okay. And then by the following Tuesday, you need to have sent them an email or whatever, however you communicate. This is what I heard. This is what I'm going to do about it. Okay. And then you could ask your next question on Wednesday. And you actually do something with the information. And then on that company-wide meeting, you bring up those 4 or 5 questions that you asked during the month and remind everybody, this is what we heard on these. This is what we've done. This is our progress report, how we have improved it. We ask things like, how am I as the CEO getting in your way? Who in the organization is killing it right now? Who should we be recognizing? Like, who are we not realizing is really doing well? What client is driving you crazy? What resources do you not have? Right? Like, what product or what service should we be offering our clients that we haven't thought of? Like, you start asking them these things, right? And I wouldn't start with big, giant, hard questions to start, get them warmed up, get them going. But you'll be shocked at once they start seeing that they tell you something, that you actually do something, and that you don't turn it into well, I want to know who said that, and I don't like being criticized. You're not defensive and you're not upset by the answers, that you are willing to take whatever it is they say and figure out how to make it better, right? That routine, we asked about 48 questions a year. So we only missed about 4 or 5 times a year did we miss a week. And I had about a 95% response rate. Because people knew that I actually read the answers. I actually did something with the information, right? And things actually got better for them when they, or got better for other people in the organization based on them letting me know what was going on.
Chris, The Power of Company Culture and Remote Work is your book, right? Where's that at? Is that on Amazon?
Yeah, Amazon or wherever you buy books online, you can find both those books. Yeah.
Okay. For those watching, literally, I mean, I don't know if you're aware of how good this is. Like, there's so many actionable steps I've already actually tracked here while we're doing this interview. And I can tell you that before we are done, I will go and get this book as well. And you should as well. It's called The Power of Company Culture and Remote Work. You can get it on Amazon. I'm actually going to show you. I'm going to purchase this thing right now during this interview. And I'll actually even show it to you. I did. And I suggest you do the same thing, because we're just like, we're not even a fraction of the 2 pillars. We just touched upon 2 of the pillars, and there's so much actionable info. So I hope you're recognizing this for what it is. Great feedback. I love every bit of that, because that it's just so brilliant. And that's the thing, is I think that as leaders, we're so close to what's going on that sometimes we just miss obvious stuff. We just don't know how to solve problems or move forward. But our team members oftentimes do, but they stay quiet about it. So I really love the transparency piece, and I love this 1 question approach. And then this is something that we started to do too, is to show them that we're going to take action on those items. When they see, wait a second, my opinion matters, and then I'm putting a suggestion out there and they're taking these suggestions, then that's what I think gets you to that 90-95% response rate. So just loving every minute of this. So that being said, uniqueness. I thought that was interesting because when you mentioned this uniqueness pillar, I don't know what that means. And I'm interested in you kind of doing a deeper dive and explaining that a little bit more.
Yeah, so the uniqueness pillar kind of covers a lot of different areas for companies. So let's start with the obvious. You had better be able to demonstrate, articulate, and talk about what makes your company unique in the marketplace, right? So that's the marketing part. Like, can you come in and talk about what you do? I give the silly example in the book of like, if you sold those yellow pencils that we used in school to take tests, like how could you possibly articulate what makes you unique if you sold the same yellow pencil that everyone else sold, right? But there are ways to do it, there are ways to think about it. It's a little exercise in the book on how to do that. So that's the first part. Can we show up uniquely in the marketplace? And with a vision, with the wording, with the backing, and all of that. But then we talk about how do we think about our people as unique? As human beings, it's sort of a cognitive bias for us. It's kind of a thing that we do. We want to think about how people are similar to us, right? This is how biases and different things creep into the hiring process because we tend to want to hire people like us, hire people who we like, hire people who like what we like, hire people that we want to go have a beer with after work. Like, if you're a Red Sox fan, you hire someone who's a Red Sox fan. If you went to University of Alabama, you're hiring people from University of Alabama. Like it's really interesting how we're trying to connect with other human beings, and ultimately what we end up doing is hiring people who have a lot of the same thought processes and experiences and things that we have. And the reason that ends up being bad over time is that we lose out on diversity of thought. Okay. So I never asked my organization to go and hire in any particular way or to hire certain kinds of people or not other people. We focused on how do we have diversity of thought. And the only way we could do that was by getting really curious about what made people unique and what made them different. How did they think differently than the people we already had? I love to use, here's a great example from the book. We took, had every thousands of our employees take the Strengths Finders assessment that you can go, Gallup's got it. It's your 5 strengths. If you haven't done it, go do it. It's awesome because it kind of helps you really figure out who you are and like how to show up at work based on what you're good at. But we took all of their data and we mapped it out on a giant Excel sheet. And what was shocking to me was how by department, everyone in that department all had like the same top 2 or 3 strengths, which was really weird. But also we had massive gaps on that sheet where we had I had thousands of employees and we had a strength. One of them was like analytical. We didn't have a single employee who was analytical as our top 5. Like we had other ones where there was almost no data points, right? So I had absolute crazy amounts of responsibility and professionalism and ideation. I had the great strengths, but like other ones where there was nothing. And so all I did was tell all of my hiring, all my leaders, I said, listen, because I always did like the final interview for people. I said, don't send me anybody unless they have in their top 5 strengths, one of the strengths that we're missing, that we're really low on. That was it. That was my only requirement of them. And so they had, new hires or new applicants fill those out. The kind of person that started showing up to those interviews was so different. I started hearing different ideas. I started seeing different types of people, right? Because now no longer was my hiring leaders sort of connecting on these very superficial things. They were getting more interested in what the quality of that person could be. And that really helped us kind of grow the organization as we continue to get bigger, to have more different types of thinkers. Because this is where organizations start to stall. They start to do well, they start to get big, and then all of a sudden you just have a whole boardroom full of people or a whole team full of people that all think exactly the same. And when the crap hits the fan and you need a great idea, and all 10 people sitting in that conference room have the same idea, you're in trouble, right? So uniqueness really helps us figure out and make sure we're tuned into this idea that we need diversity of thought. We need to think about how do we position our companies in unique ways. We need to celebrate what makes us unique. Celebrate our people for what makes them unique and not what makes us the same. And that is my, and I think what I've seen the best organizations do, actual solution to this idea of how do we provide, how do we create an organization that is diverse, how do we create an organization that is equitable for people without, I think, some of these like really difficult and honestly haven't really worked very well policies, well-intended policies from some large organizations. How do we actually approach this in a meaningful way that's good for everybody?
Chris, powerful stuff today. And I like the approach of uniqueness, both as the uniqueness of the company to the team member, but then the uniqueness of each team member and what makes them different, and then putting together different people to be able to create contrast, to be able to create different perspectives of looking at the exact same problem and producing solutions, every bit of that. So we've only scratched the surface on 3 of your 7, and we're at 30 minutes. I mean, we're like at the end. So I could sit here and obviously keep you here for hours. But for those that want to learn more and get access to the other 4 and it sounds like you've got examples and a lot of other things related to the first 3 that we just touched upon. We just touched upon them. We didn't even dive deep. Where can somebody watching this that wants to learn more go to be able to do so?
Sure. So I've got a ton of content on TikTok and Instagram Reels if you want to go there. Happy to connect on LinkedIn as well. There's lots of content. But if you'd like some maybe like kind of easy stuff you can do right now, you can text 33777 and just put my name as Chris as the message. And I will immediately send you a PDF that has 25 starter questions for that 1-question survey if you're interested in doing that. Kind of the first 25 to get you going. That's 25 weeks. You won't have to think about it. And then also in there are some different ways to run your meetings. We didn't even get into how culture kind of lives inside of meetings. And so I give you some different meeting types to kind of help keep your meetings different focuses, different lengths. That really helps people show up, take ownership, and deliver for your company when they know exactly what's expected of them. Because right now, I guarantee most of you are having the same crappy 30-minute meeting over and over and over and over and over again. And then we wonder why our people aren't helping us more. We need different types of meetings where we say, this is what I need from my people in this kind of meeting, and this is what I need from you in this kind of meeting. And so they can show up and do better, right? The very quick example is, what's the most popular party that you go to every year? Do you know? It's a birthday party. Why are birthday parties the party that everyone shows up for? It's not because we care it's your birthday. It's because birthday parties are highly curated. We know exactly what to do. We know exactly what's going to happen, and we know exactly when we're allowed to leave, right? The birthday party is just an easy formula. Everyone knows we show up. It's not that long. We know when the candles and the cake come out and we sing happy birthday, that now we're allowed to go. It is socially acceptable for us to leave when we want to leave. Like, it is the perfect party. Yet we have all of these meetings and people there's no like formula for them on how to act, what they're supposed to do. Is it mandatory? Is it optional? And so they have anxiety about what they're supposed to do, and they basically show up and just kind of do the middle amount of stuff, right? So in this PDF I'll give you, and in the books, if you buy either of those books, there's a very long explanation of how to run these different types of meetings, but it'll give you the kind of starting point. If you do any meeting, start with the cockroach meeting. That's the best one. But that will help your people show up and do better for you.
I love that. Chris, thanks for coming on with us today. So much, so many powerful tips that are actionable in the time we spent together. So just really appreciative.
Thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it.
All right, so a few actions I want you to take. First of all, I just did this, as you can see here, and so you should do the same thing. Text the number 33777 and just put in Chris's first name, Chris. Okay, and if you do so, then right now I'm already engaging in text to be able to get those things that Chris talked about, including the 25 starter questions, to be able to send to team members the one a week. I love that because I literally had to make a note to go, hey, 20 minutes of the podcast, he covered this. I need to go back and get those question examples that he had. And then here he is saving me like, hey, I'm just going to text it to you. So I'm going to grab those 25 questions. The next thing is getting all those insights on meetings, how to conduct better meetings and get better results as well. So it's the first thing you should do. Is 100% free. All you have to do is text the number 33777 and just text the word Chris, Chris, and then it happens from there. The second thing I want you to do is go to chrisdyer.com, and that's CHRISDYER.com. If you go to the bottom of the page, if you just scroll down at the bottom right, you're going to find all Chris's social media handles. He talked about TikTok, it's right down there. So his social handles are right down there. It takes less than 1 minute just to follow up and get your daily dose of culture with all the content that he's putting out there. The next thing is that you really should do is you should get this book. I mean, I just did. I told you right now, I would show it to you right there. There's my order of the book. I don't know how clear that is, but you can see right there, I got the book while we were sitting here during the interview, because think about it. If you're able, I don't know about you, but when I read a book, man, my worst case scenario is I want to walk away with an idea, an entire book to get an idea. We just sat here and talked about, like, scratch the surface of 2 of these 7, and I already have like 7 different actionable ideas. So you can imagine that sometimes you just find a book that's a home run, and that book you find is like, it's just ton full of actionable, really powerful ideas. That's what this thing is going to be. So make sure you grab it. Again, the book is The Power of Company Culture and Remote Work. I just typed in The Power of Company Culture into Amazon and it pulled it up. I checked that Chris was the author and I got the book. Okay, so make sure that you take that step as well. Look, this is important. It's amazing. And Chris showed this is where we were. Here's where we went to. And coming out of a recession, one of the worst times in our economy that I've seen in my adult life, and was able to take it from here to massive success and exit by focusing on company culture. See how he did it. Make sure you take those 3 steps. Make sure you text 33777 with the word Chris. Make sure you check out chrisdyer.com, bottom right, and subscribe on his social channels. And make sure you also go and grab his book, The Power of Company Culture and Remote Work, from Amazon or anywhere else that you can find it. But Amazon's probably one of the easiest places. Thank you very much for tuning in. Take care. Have a great day.